Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I can hear you now. Yeah, you were just breaking up for a second.
Oh, weird.
Okay.
Mm.
Okay. Well, how are we going to intro this?
Um.
Motivation and you've got no self-esteem. There's a hole inside your head with no vision to be seen. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
Boy, Mike, as you can tell, we're completely prepared for this.
This is you're here for sandbox mode. You're our you're the maiden voyage here.
Okay, I'll start it off. To the people watching and listening, welcome to the second episode of This Is Just a Phase. I'm your host, Jonathan Kent, along with
Sam Sinister.
And tonight we're talking to a good friend of both of us. He has been an intricate part of Pennsylvania hardcore for almost 25 years now, not to age all three of us. But it's been a long time. And his name is Mike Rodemoyer. You may remember him from bands such as Letters, SOL, Armed Battery. Those are the big three, and some other projects I'm sure scattered throughout. He's also the co-owner, along with me, in This Is Just a Record label that we've been doing since the fall of 2021. Ladies and gentlemen, Mike Rodemoyer.
Hey.
Welcome on the podcast, my man.
Yeah, happy to be here.
I believe this is your fourth time?
Third or fourth. Yeah, that sounds about right.
But the first time on the new rebooted YouTube style that we're doing now. We wanted to have you on the podcast because we wanted to kind of ease into it, with a guest that we both know that we don't have to really, one person might be more of an advantage than the other as far as their guests or whatever,
Right.
So we wanted to start with somebody we both knew, somebody that we both respected. So thanks for being on the podcast, man.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
To the watcher and listener, Mike's, like I said, purveyor in hardcore, but is also a music lover of all kinds of punk and somewhat metal music. And he also really likes, stuff that we like skate punk and pop punk and maybe street punk. But when did you, what was you started out with Armed Battery when you were what, 15?
Yeah, 15 is when we started the band.
So you guys were known as a 𝗺𝗁𝗄𝗄 band. What bands were you listening to that got you in that style to begin with at such a young age?
Oh, geez. I mean, I just like you, I started out more on the punk side of things, I guess. I got really into punk through like BMX videos, skate videos, motocross videos, stuff like that. So I was already, into punk a lot, more like skate punk, the Fat Records, Epitaph, whatever. But then somebody gave me, one of my friends from school who I was eventually in the band with, gave me a mix CD of a lot of old hardcore stuff. And I ran out and picked up a lot of those albums. The big one for me at the time was Sick of It All. All of us were really huge into like H2O and 7 Seconds, that more like melodic, hardcore sound. So when we were starting out, we were still, I don't know, kind of a pop punk band, kind of, we had that hardcore leaning, but we weren't a full-fledged hardcore band for a while.
Yeah, I was going to say, you definitely were into like the Revelation style bands.
Yeah.
Youth of Today, Gorilla Biscuit, Shelter, those bands, of course, which really came through, at least to me as somebody who was into that kind of hardcore, and the Revelation hardcore, into the Victory hardcore. You know, I think Sam somewhat as well. Sam, your thoughts on that?
Well, you mentioned Sick of It All. I wanted to see what like what was your first Sick of It All album that you got into?
The first one I had, even, I mean, still to this day is my favorites, Built to Last.
Okay, all right.
Built to Last for me, like, changed everything as far as like the punk rock landscape, you know.
Mm-hmm. I don't even know how I heard it, but like the first one I got was Scratch the Surface, and I guess that was like sort of a later one. Yeah.
Oh, that was actually an earlier one. That came out in like '94 or something, I think.
Huh, okay. Yeah, I assume they were around. I assume they were around since like the late '80s or whatever. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think like 85, 86, something like that.
Something like that. But like Built to Last for me took, you know, all of those influences from like punk and, you know, like street punk, stuff like that, and added the more of an edge to it. And, you know, and that was kind of like, oh, this is my shit compared to, you know, NoFX, you know, which was more, you know, as an angsty teenager, you need that, for me anyways, I needed that, you know, that edge, which I hadn't really found in, you know, the earlier punk bands that we were all into.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that was sort of the same transition for me. I think we're all like the three of us are all pretty much the same age, right?
Yeah,
I think
so.
Like you just turned 44, I just turned 44. Is that accurate?
Oh, you just turned 41. He's
41. Okay, you're a baby.
I'm the baby in this conversation.
You got to remember, he started playing in bands when he was 15. So
yeah. I think that's why I just always assume you're like my age, is because you were.
Well, when we met, I think I was like 18. You know, you guys were going to bars and stuff already. So
yeah, but I think you like owned your own house or something already, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Well, I moved out like the week I turned 18, I think. So
yeah, I was still sleeping on people's couches, and I was like 22. So
yeah. So let's fast forward a little bit into starting on Battery. You guys are based out of Mercer, Pennsylvania, which is kind of a suburb of like Sharon, Hermitage, the Youngstown area.
Go take all your shit. Start to build up a stick. Toss up, get up, take it to the streets.
What was the scene like that early on? Like, you know, it's a small area. There wasn't a lot of punk bands at the time. This would have been what, like 99, 2000. So, you know, we know what the scene was like, but explain to the listener what the scene was coming from your eyes.
Well, I think it was like 99 or something when we started the band. Prior to that, you know, I'd been going to a lot of shows in Meadville, Franklin, Oil City. That area was kind of the, you know, for our age group, kind of the hotbed for, you know, punk rock.
Yeah.
So we started playing shows with, you know, those shows, but I don't know that we ever really like fit in. You know, I got along with those guys, all those bands that played all those shows. I was pretty tight with some of the guys. A couple of the guys were actually from Mercer. I don't know if you remember the Pseudo Heroes.
Yeah, I remember the Pseudo Heroes.
I'm familiar. Yep.
Yeah, so you know, I got along with everybody, but we never really kind of like fit in, you know. At least I felt that way. It probably wasn't that way, you know, in retrospect, but that was kind of the hotbed, you know, for our scene until they opened up that venue in Sharon, which you guys know well, Freddie Fresh's.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So long story short, you know, all our bands played there. You know, we got all the bands we knew from everywhere to play there. They got bands from, you know, more like Eastern Ohio to play there, or even further. But we, you know, I was never really involved in the hardcore scene per se. I went to a lot of shows until after that. there was a festival at it's kind of a funny story. There was a festival at Freddie Fresh's. I don't know if you remember the From a Second Story Window guys before they were.
Oh yeah, I went to school with Joey. Yeah.
So before, right after they became From a Second Story Window, would have been like 2002, 2003.
They were aphasia.
Yeah, they booked this huge fest at Freddie Fresh's with a couple like bigger name like hardcore bands. And so at the time, message boards were the thing, right? And I was friends with those guys at that point in time. And there were some dudes talking shit on From a Second Story Window, and me being their friend, I was defending them on this message board. So I ended up meeting these guys at that huge fest at Freddy's, and they were all from like Youngstown, Warren, Niles, or whatever. And so we got in with those guys and started playing a lot of shows like in Youngstown. And I mean, there was quite a few shows around there. After meeting those guys, I met a bunch of guys from like Erie and Pittsburgh, and that's when we like, as that band really got involved in like the hardcore scene. We were playing every weekend. It seemed like sometimes 2 shows in a weekend, either Pittsburgh, Erie, Youngstown. I mean, just all kinds of, all locally, you know, we never really did any traveling, but we played a lot in like Pittsburgh and Erie after that. I mean, those were the 3 spots for hardcore at that time. You had Youngstown, Pittsburgh, and Erie. Outside of that, you know, in our area, there wasn't anything.
Yeah, and it's 3 scenes that really don't get a lot of attention when it comes to punk, and especially like hardcore. I mean, probably Cleveland probably gets the most attention, but you know, Erie and Youngstown produced some pretty big, and Pittsburgh produced some pretty big bands.
Yeah.
You know, Discipline and Ringworm and Brothers Keeper, and you have, of course, like bands like you know, Silver Tongue Devil and Austin Rotten and all those bands that are all in different areas. You know, Youngstown Crowd Deterrent, Kitchen Knife Conspiracy, Mr. Yuck, and the Poison Control. Those were the bands that were kind of getting, you know, from like 95 to 2005 really were kind of, you know, right. You know, don't forget Ignition. I don't want to forget it, Ignition either. But
the whole thing at that time, and you know, before I left the scene or whatever, everyone went to every show. So if the show was in Pittsburgh, and you know, we all knew each other, all the dudes from Erie or Youngstown, everyone would go to Pittsburgh. The same with like Erie. Like we all went to every show together. Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Erie. And so it was always all the same people at the shows. It was really cool, like at that point in time. So that would have been like 2003 till like 2005, 2006. Everybody supported everybody. It was really, really cool.
Yeah, that's pretty much like when me and Sam were going to shows too. You know, and I didn't meet Sam until 98, but I had already started going to like Meadville, Erie, you know, Jamestown shows. Youngstown really didn't have anything yet. I think that might have been an early crowd deterrent. Because I know, you know, some of those guys were younger than me. And you guys were, of course, young. I mean, you guys were all in your teens, you know, at the very beginning of it. I mean, your youngest member was like 12.
Yeah, when we started the band, yeah, Colin was 12.
And that wasn't even his first band. Didn't he play like grindcore before that, did he?
Yeah, well, some of the like Pseudo-Hero guys had like this joke band, and Colin used to sing for him a little bit. Yeah. So
he was like 9, 10 years old.
Like 10 or, I don't remember now. I mean, that was a lifetime ago.
I just remember meeting all you guys, and he was like maybe 15 at the time, and he was already like a veteran.
Yeah. Even at 12, dude was a monster drummer.
Yeah, he's still going strong too, man. It's crazy. But Sam, we want to follow up with the next question?
Yeah.
Oh, you got more prepared than I thought.
Well, no, I'm just we're winging it. Like, I don't know if I should say that. Well, John's probably not winging it. John probably came with like, he's probably got a notebook down there below, like at waist level.
Normally I would, but with Mike, I didn't really have to. Like, I already know his story.
Yeah, so. You know, talk all, so.
Yeah. So, favorite cheeseburger, go.
Favorite cheeseburger? Oh man, I'm a mushroom Swiss guy.
Are you really?
I am. Yeah. Yeah.
Huh.
Mushrooms.
Would not have pegged you for a mushroom Swiss guy.
I get that a lot.
I want to piggyback off of this, and this is especially for Mike. Sam, you want to know this place. In the Shenango Valley, do you remember a restaurant called the Suburban?
Yes.
Best mushroom Swiss burger in the valley.
I don't remember that one at all. I don't even know if I ever had one. I mean, we never went.
It was my favorite in the valley, dude. I would go to that place, and they had like this. It was this little place, Sam, down by where they ended up building, like the bigger movie theater in Hermitage.
Okay, yeah,
There's a little plaza kind of on the side, like after you pass, where like the old 𝗵𝗄𝗄𝗄 was and stuff like that, like down towards the bottom. It was a little plaza across the street, and it was like this bar and restaurant. And my mom loved the place, and we would always go there, and I would always order the mushroom Swiss burger.
Huh.
Yep.
So I had to bring it up, man, because you mentioned mushroom Swiss, man.
I missed it, and I'll never have it. So,
well, since you don't know, we can just probably edit that part out because I look like a fucking idiot.
Mine used to be the and this is still like a go-to for me, but like the like a bacon black and blue.
That's a good
one.
You know,
blue cheese and blackened, and put some A1 and some bacon on it. But lately, and this can go one of two ways with the reaction, but peanut butter burger.
I mean, I'd try it.
There's like a couple places up here that it's usually like sriracha, peanut butter, pickles, and bacon, and it's.
You had me until sriracha.
No, the sriracha and peanut butter are awesome together. It's like the Thai thing, you know.
Is that like a Northeast Ohio thing?
I don't know. It could be, or it might just be like a hipster thing or something.
Yeah, it's that bougie hipster shit up in Cleveland.
Yeah, you get a nice IPA with that.
I was going to say that. Nice peanut butter sriracha burger.
You had me until IPAs.
Yeah, I don't drink that shit either.
No. So let's fast forward a little bit, Mike, and talk about later on. I mean, as we've talked about, we've been friends for, over 20 years. You kind of stepped away from music a little bit, for a number of years, and then you just for different reasons, you being in your 20s and having to work and just kind of not really being into it as much. And then fast forward to 2015, you and your brother started Letters.
I mean, so, I mean, I'll back up a little bit, kind of my whole stepping away from it. Anyways, I guess that would be important. So after the whole armed battery thing, I mean, that band went for maybe like 7 years, I think.
Mm-hmm.
You know, after I stepped away from that, I took a little break and started another band actually, which was SOL.
Yeah.
One of my friends from high school, he's quite a few years younger than me. I think he was younger than my brother. But I used to take him to shows with me when he couldn't drive. He was 3 or 4 years younger than me. I'd take him to shows a lot. And after I quit armed battery, he's like, "Hey, we should start a band." So I'm like, "Oh, yeah, man, I'm down. Let's do that." So we started that band, just me and him. We didn't have a drummer or a bass player. He played guitar. So I was talking to Danny one day, and he was like, "I want to play drums." He'd never played drums before that band.
For the listener who doesn't know, that's your brother, Danny.
Yeah, my brother, Danny, yeah. So Brandon, who had played guitar in SOL, was a drummer before he was a guitar player. So he taught Danny how to play drums for that band. We did that for a couple years, and Danny left and went and joined another band. Brandon and I had multiple drummers, multiple bass players, couldn't keep anybody in the band. We recorded a whole full length, just me and him. He played all the instruments on the record.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think we played, like, after we recorded that, we played one show. We had a fill-in drummer. He played great, but then he's like, I don't want to do this. I don't know. At that time, 2004, 2005, I think it was about 2005, all the metalcore bands were kind of the craze. So,
yeah.
The whole girl pants and tight T-shirts and all that fun stuff. And
the dark days, as I call it.
Yeah. We were just like super fast, like thrashy, like hardcore punk band, So we'd play all these shows with like these metalcore bands, and kids wanted to two-step and spin kick, and they didn't know what the hell to do with the band. So nobody cared about it at that time. And after not being able to keep members, we kind of were like, let's just hang it up. And Brandon was in college in Cleveland too, so we only got together when he would come home to visit, and that made it really difficult. And so after that, I was like, you know what? This has run its course. I'm just going to step away from it for a bit. And the scene at the time, I wasn't feeling it anymore. A lot of the bands, all the beat down bands and whatever, wasn't really my thing. So I kind of just stepped away from it for a few years. I would still go to shows every now and then, bands I really wanted to see, but I wasn't really part of the scene or whatever anymore. I was just kind of a bystander at that point. But yeah, I never wanted to be in a band again. Danny lived with me for a little bit. I don't know if you remember his band Conductor.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
All right. So yeah, Danny's band was practicing in my house all the time, and even then I still didn't have any interest in being in a band anymore. Well, fast forward some years later, I had some kids, and I was no longer living with my brother, and Conductor had went to the wayside, and they had started a new band, but they couldn't find anybody to sing. So he would pester me and be like, "Hey, you should sing for our band." I'm like, "Dude, I haven't touched a microphone in 5 years. Like, I don't write anymore. Like, I'm, it's not really my thing anymore." I didn't really have any interest of it until, and he just kept bugging me, basically. And I went to one of the practices one night. I think they only had like 3 songs written at that point, just, music only. They didn't have anybody to sing. And I was like, I kind of do want to do this again. And, so I agreed to join the band. I'm like, "Hey, I'll practice one time, see if I can even still do it. And we'll go from there." And, after the first practice, they sent me over some rough recordings. I wrote lyrics to one song, which later became Prayer. And from there, I was hooked again. I mean, it was, it was new and exciting at that point after I'd taken 5-6 years off from it.
So the sound was much different from stuff that you were doing in the past. Like, you were almost kind of in like the I want to call it metalcore, but it was almost like kind of like the what hardcore was morphing into. You know what I mean? There was metal influences, but it's just what hardcore was becoming in the 2000s. You know, more the metal edge, but almost very much emotive lyrics. You know, some screaming. You know, the dual vocals, the sting scream lyrics. Was that something that you were getting influenced more at that point with music, or was that just how the music was kind of before you joined?
My influences are all across the board. I mean, I listen to metal, I listen to punk, I listen to hardcore, I listen to emo. You know what I mean? I'm literally everywhere. So I knew kind of what I wanted to do going into it, which was more of that melodic, you know, like you said, the emotive, the emotional. I've always been a writer. I write not always happy things, but you know, it's always what I'm feeling. So, and some of the guys in the band were quite a bit younger than the rest, you know, me. So Colin and Sean are, man, I don't know, 10 years younger than me.
Yeah.
You know, Corey, who played bass, he's a year older than me. Danny's 2 years younger than me, but I think some of that more metal-ish, more modern influence came from, you know, the guitar players being way younger than us and what they were into.
But you knew as a writer, you could fit your writings into that style. Like it was you're a lot like me, where we could write a country album if we wanted to. It's not, you know, we're not genre specific when it comes to writing.
Like
me
Beyonce.
Too, me too.
It's like Beyonce.
Yeah.
You're like the Beyonce of hardcore.
No, I mean, everybody's doing it now. I mean, I can't take any credit for anything. There was a lot of bands around at that point who did that more, you know, emotional, melodic, you know, sound. So that's kind of where we all just leaned towards and went with it. Even then, our sound was still really different, I think, because of all those different influences.
Yeah, because you weren't sounding much like other bands, like maybe like Wanderer, or like what Single Home would have probably already been done. So we, you know, it would have been more the, you know, One If by Land kind of stuff. But it wasn't. You guys set yourself apart from bands like that too.
Well, I mean, yeah, we were kind of just on our own, doing our own thing, you know, and that was one of my stipulations in joining that band. I'm like, I'm not doing this for any other reason other than just do it for myself, you know.
Exactly.
I like having this outlet. I have no expectations, you know. I don't care if we ever play a show. Like that's what it was at the beginning of it. I'm like, I just want to play just to play.
Sam, any questions for Mike?
No, again, like I didn't really prepare at all. I figured you were gonna have a lot of questions. You know what I mean?
Am I gonna take the driver's wheel on this one?
Yeah, I'm sort of like the Robin to your Howard Stern in this. I think like I'm just gonna be like ha, 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 and then it'll cut to me every once in a while. And mainly I'm just doing like producer shit. You know what I mean?
But really, you're my 𝗵𝗵𝗶𝗶𝗶𝗶.
Yeah, I'm your 𝗵𝗵𝗶𝗶𝗶𝗶.
Well, it's funny. We have that same relationship with the record label.
Yeah. Let's actually talk about the record label for a minute.
Sure.
So when you guys started this, it's been what, like 3 years?
Almost 4. Yeah, well, 3.5, I guess. We started. Okay, so the listener knows. Mike was talking about Letters. He had played for a number of years in Letters, and they recorded an EP, and then they disbanded because Mike ended up moving to Virginia, right, Mike?
Yeah, it's just hard. I mean, I tried to keep it together for a little bit. You know, going back and forth for practice became kind of a chore, and had some life things going on, and it just wasn't a priority for me.
So they ended up disbanding in like 2017, 2018. And then what ended up happening, of course, we all remember the fun story that was the pandemic.
Right.
And yeah, and what ended up happening was me and Mike had been talking throughout the pandemic. Yeah, just more and more. Like we had, you know, started touching base, more commenting on each other's posts more. And him and his brother announced that they were doing a reunion show. It was this garage show in Hermitage on, I think it was Troutman Road, like out in the boonies of Hermitage, almost like you're going towards like the reservoir. And there was a bunch of bands on this lineup, and it was just basically the headliner was Letter's reunion show, first time in so many years.
In 5 years, we practiced 3 times.
It's been a while. Yeah, it was like 5 years at that point.
Yeah, it would have been like 5 years by that point.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, I got to. You know, I hadn't been out of the house. I hadn't been to a show in a year and a half at that point, I think. And I was like, I told my wife, I said, listen, I got to go to this show. I got to see Mike. It's been a long time since I've seen Mike. It's been a long time since I've seen Danny. I was like, I never caught Letters when they were in their original incarnation because of kids and all that stuff too. So I was like, I got to make it out there. And ended up, you know, not only getting to see them, but got to find another band that we ended up putting out on the label, as well as a bunch of bands that I'm still friends with now. So that's basically the genesis for the label.
Yeah, I mean, it like came out of the like your podcast though, you know what I mean? Because even the name, you know, because This Is Just a Phase was the podcast.
You're
and
right.
I think,
you're right.
like you mentioned the pandemic, and I think, because I was used
the podcast came out. Yeah, the podcast came out of the pandemic. Yeah.
I don't want to give myself too much credit here, but I'm saying like, okay, so I was used to DJing every single Friday for like however many years, like 4 years or whatever. And then the pandemic happens and everything grinds to a halt, like it did for everyone. You know what I mean? And I was like, well, fuck it. I'm going to do it like a podcast. And then, John, I remember you sending me messages and calling me and stuff, being like, dude, like everyone's doing something during the pandemic because they can't do anything. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember you calling me and be like, dude, how can I do a podcast? And I walked you through what I do. And then I think I was the one that sent you, before they were acquired by Spotify, was Anchor.
Yeah.
Because Nick Wolf up here in Cleveland, who's like, you know, punk rocker guy, he was doing something with Anchor. And I was like, oh, yeah, my buddy does this thing with this thing called Anchor. You signed up. They ended up getting acquired by Spotify. And then I just remember the label was, from that show, from the Letters reunion show. It was like spun off of your podcast and, you know, as like the name, at least. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the podcast started, I was approaching my 40th birthday and I was just going through all kinds of stuff, man. You know what I mean? It wasn't even that I had a hard time turning 40. It was just my kids were getting older. I know I had kids that were less and less wanting, you know, me. They wanted to hang out with their friends, and they were becoming more cognizant of things. And I knew I wanted to. I was kind of getting almost like not a second childhood, but I knew if I started going back to shows again and started doing these things, that like it would be kind of a new chapter in a way, you know what I mean? Like I could kind of be a little bit more selfish and the kids wouldn't care kind of a thing, you know? So, you know, between you and my wife and a couple other of my friends, you know, I decided to do the podcast, and then I did it through that summer, and then having a lot of bands on kind of reignited, you know, I wanted to get the fuck out of the house. And of course, Mike and Danny hit me up with the show, and the podcast was the means to connect doing a label. And that's why I chose the name of the label. Looking back, it's a horrible fucking name.
No, it's not. I like it.
We had a conversation at that show, which I think was, you know, the final thing that kind of pushed you over the edge with the idea, was that, you know, we've all grew up in this scene, in this area where there's so much talent, so many amazing bands, and no one's ever heard of them, you know? So we talked about that forever, and you were like, you know, I've always wanted to start a label. Like, I should do that, you know? And I think it just kind of took off from there.
Yeah, it really was. That night, I remember I seeing you that night, and not only did I get to see you guys, but then the band Gatlin from Youngstown, who I knew the lead singer from my Newcastle punk days, Kramer. I got to know those guys a little bit more, and you know, other bands. I think it was Meat Department, and I'm trying to remember who all played that night. There was like 6 bands played.
Yeah, there's 5.
Now, one band from Pittsburgh, what were they called?
Tough Cuffs. They were
Tough Cuffs. Yeah. And I remember loving you guys and loving Gatlin and loving the other bands. And I remember, you know, we hung out till fucking the wee hours of the morning, man. And I remember driving home that night, and I just remember thinking, man, I really want to fucking do this label I've been talking about. I mean, me and Sam had our vanity label when we were in the runs or versatiles. We did interior, exterior. Yeah. But it was just all of our shit. You know?
It was mostly us with like a 2-track recorder, just making fucking dumb jokes to music and, like, you know, calling each song a different band. Yeah.
And putting out a greatest hits compilation of all of our bands.
I still have that shit, man.
Have that, Sam? You should send that to me.
I will. I have to. It might be on my hard drive. If it's not, I have the CD somewhere. But I think we made like 60 copies of it, and we took them up to Disc Junkie Records in Sharon or Hermitage, whichever it is, and yeah, like we went back a couple days later and they were all gone. And it was just like a cut and paste, like Xerox fucking cover. And then I think we put a catalog in it. And it
was that the Runs album?
Well, no, we had the Runs album, but and there were a couple of those songs on it, but mostly it was like me and John and our friend Ray sitting in Ray's basement with like, there was like a period of time where you could go to any thrift store and they would have like a cassette recorder with like a left and right input, and you could just stick 2 mics on either side of the room, like a 50s recording, and just record whatever the fuck you want. So like we used that a lot, and it was mostly just us with like an acoustic guitar, and like I'd be banging on like chairs and pots and pans and shit with, you know, with drumsticks. And we just call it a band. And then I had my groove box that I would make like, you know, backing tracks with and shit. So it'd be like, you know, the backseat drivers with, you know, I can't even say most of the songs.
Oh man, the backseat drivers. I'm glad you brought that up, Mike. That was a project where me, Ray, Sam, and my brother-in-law, you know him, Chris. Yep. We basically stayed up all night drinking coffee, and we were like, let's just make up songs. And I would just play on the acoustic guitar, and Ray would play leads, and Sam and Chris would just kind of bang around on stuff. And we were just making up songs on the spot. We were just, you know, no like prep or anything. And we did enough that we made a full length. It was like 11 songs or 12 songs or whatever. And we had a show at Section 8 skate park where we were the 𝗵𝗂𝐸𝗫. And two of the bands, our friend Bauer and Gino's new band, they were called Seen on TV. And there was another band that was supposed to play the show with us, and they both fell through. So we had like no openers, so we had to basically like be our own openers. So
And there was what, 4 people there?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, dude, nobody gave a fuck about
and
us,
like
dude.
a couple,
not a single person.
There was like a couple families, like kids, you know, riding BMX bikes or skateboards on the ramps and shit.
I mean, young kids. I mean, there were some like maybe 7-8-year-olds. Like just they shouldn't have been there. Like I don't know what these people were thinking.
I think we had some complaints actually too.
Oh, definitely, absolutely. Just based on what I'm about to say alone. I mean, God, the 𝗵𝗂𝐸𝗫 had a song called "Fuck You," so that was probably the dead giveaway. But there was so we basically did backseat drivers where I just made up songs on the spot. Well, there was a kid who was, you know, like on a BMX bike, and he was doing like tricks and stuff. Like, you know, we were set on the one side where like they kind of opened up the ramp, and on the other side is where like the bigger ramps were still set up. Well, there was this kid, and he was kind of going around, and he kept stopping and watching us and kind of giving us dirty looks and then riding off. Well, this one point, he was trying to be cute and didn't want to kind of like riding on like his front wheel or whatever. Well, he flipped and he wiped the fuck out right in front of us, dude. So then I stopped. I went cut to the band, and I started by myself, started strumming the guitar and start singing about how the kid that just wiped out, singing about how he wiped out in front of the audience. Because this kid was mugging me all fucking night. I was like, well, dude, just desserts, bitch.
From the sound of the audience was just his parents anyways. So.
Just the parents and kids anyways. Yeah. Like, I don't know who I was performing for, but, you know, it was funny to me. I thought it was funny. So I just started singing this, like, 22-year-old guy singing to, like, this maybe 16-year-old kid about wiping out on his BMX bike. And, dude, if looks could kill. And I just kept it going. It was probably a 4-minute song. Like, I just kept fucking sticking the knife in more. And the rest of the band was laughing. But that was probably one of the funnest fucking shows I ever played. And it was just fucking stupid. It was just a stupid show, but it was funny. Sam, your thoughts?
Oh, I forgot about I forgot about all that, and probably for good reason.
I don't know how I missed that one.
Oh, you might have been probably properly told not to go to the show.
You were an adult.
What's that?
He was an adult. He had mortgage payment and shit. Like, we were all just like, yeah, we just watched the Andy Kaufman movie, so that's, you know. And like Kung Pao Enter the Fist, so that's all that we're gonna do with our lives.
Well, in all fairness, I did have my own trailer at that point, so I was a responsible kind of adult at that point. So
I was not.
No, but I just remember like that was being really funny, but doing the like talking about back to the label. I ended up calling Mike the next morning, and I was just like, dude, like, I remember talking to you first and kind of gauging how you were thinking about it. And you were just kind of like, I don't really know. And I was like, you know, you got a lot on your plate, you know, but you're definitely going to be somehow affiliated with the label anyways. But something kept coming to me about wanting to reach back out to Mike, just because me and Mike come from, like, when it comes to Mike, I thought he was a lot more like me. He hadn't really been playing music. He really hadn't. He was in a situation like me, having kids and almost kind of like having to sit back and watch kind of the music scene kind of unfold and not really feeling like a part of it. You have always kind of had your pulse on the scenes, you know, whether it was Newcastle or Cleveland. I think me and Mike kind of missed out on that, and something kept having me go back to Mike. So I remember talking to Mike and engaging what he thought of it. And Mike, what were you thinking when I came to you?
You know, it's hard. I don't really remember exactly at this point. I remember, we talked about it. You came to me, kind of ran it by me, and I thought it was a great idea. I didn't know how to do it. No.
Me either.
Yeah. So, I mean, and we kind of went from there with it after that. Neither of us knew what the hell we were doing. We just kind of winged it, and it came together for that first, what was the first release? That first comp.
This is just a compilation, volume 1, yeah.
Why must we burn the country and its army? All let it go! The bottom the people of the former middle class. We finish last. No safety nets. Can't pay the rent.
Yeah, so, I mean, everything came together so easily for that. It was almost like, like, who knew that we could actually do this? And it would be fairly simple,
We had 23 tracks within a month.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of that to do with the podcasts,
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people. And that was the coolest thing to me, and it still is to this day, how many people want to be a part of it. You know what I mean? It's incredible. And that's the amazing thing about the punk and hardcore scene is that everybody wants to help everybody out. And I don't know that, I'm sure that exists in other scenes, but I don't know to the degree it does within ours.
Mm-hmm. And our initial, go ahead, Sam.
It's I mean, it's music for like outcasts and losers. You know what I mean? Like
Oh,
nobody else is gonna give a fuck. You guys give a fuck. So they're like, hey, these guys are cool. They actually like what we're doing. They're going to put out a compilation with like us and like 20 other loser bands, not to sound jaded or like, but like, I'm using that term in like a loving way. You know what I mean? But, it's just kind of like, nobody else gives a fuck. You guys do. And I think that's the main thing. Like not to bring it to me, but like, when I did a zine, it was like people just wanted to send me, or, when I did a radio, like my pirate radio show or whatever, people want to send you shit because it's like, oh, it's an outlet. Like this guy gets it. Or, in your case, these guys get it,
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think anyway. I don't know. I just think like people are used to being shit on when they're playing this kind of music, and you guys actually love it.
Yeah, we definitely, I mean, I can't speak for Mike, but I know when we initially started the label, we included, some local bands, and then also bands that were a part of the comp, a part of the podcast and stuff like that. And then just bands that we, friends of friends, what I mean? Like, if you like us, check out these dudes. And I was friends with people who, run labels, whether it's Athena, who does Little Lost Girl, or it's Amy and Bree who do Allegedly, or if it's, say 10 Records, or River Monster, or any of these different labels that I'm friends with. It was like, and I kind of reach out to them. I'm like, how are you, how do you look for bands? How do you do this thing? How do you market? How do you do all these things? Like, even though I had my marketing background, and, Mike was good because he had like more of the visual background. He knew how, he knew how to do things with his computer. That's something that I was lacking. He knew how to master or equalize these songs when we were putting it on the format to send it to the distributor. We had these, he was there to help me with things that I wasn't strong with, and I was there for him on things that he wasn't strong with, i.e. dealing with the bands, dealing with, how we're gonna do the money thing, do all those things, what I mean, that go the marketing and the money thing. Not that there's money to be had, but the label, we knew right off the jump, we were going to do the label how we thought label should be, which was being 50-50. Everything's 50-50. We're not going to own your masters. We're not going to do all this stuff. We're not going to pay for your recording. We're going to help market. We're going to help do all these things on our end that we can do, but we're not something that we're not a Sub Pop. We're not an Epitaph. We're not a Fat Wreck. We don't have the resources to be able to do these things. We can just pretty much act as kind of like a distributor and help you as much as we can. And that was our real idea there.
Well, that's the other thing. It's like with punk, hardcore, whatever, indie, like the DIY punk rock mentality. It's like you make your own rules. You know what I mean? Like you said, everything's 50-50. I don't know that that's like a business model that's like, that is like in any book. You know what I mean? Like, this is how you do things. Like, you guys are like, well, this makes sense to us. This is how we'll do it. We present it to whoever, and if they like it, then they like they jump on board.
Well, there's no overhead, so as long as we're paying for offices, you know what I mean. There's we're not we decided right away we weren't doing records.
Yeah,
just neither one of us had the capital to be able to start from scratch. I couldn't look at my wife and go, "Hey, I need $3,000 to press 100 records." That it wasn't a possibility. It just wasn't in the cards for either one of us. So we knew CDs were on the upswing. They were cheap to make. We didn't have to charge a shitload. If we weren't moving, we could give them away and it wasn't going to break us, which we did quite a bit with many of our releases. We just gave shit away because we wanted the promotion. It was early on. That's how we pressed so many of the first comps, because a lot of the times we were just giving them away for free because we wanted to get these products into people's hands.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Mike, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, the thing for me, from the perspective of someone being in a band, is any little bit that somebody else can take off your plate is invaluable. It's like another job, promoting, trying to book shows, trying to book studio time, merch, whatever. So if you have someone that comes along and says, "Hey, I'll take this off your hands," like, "Hey, let me design your album cover," or whatever, just something like that it means a lot. And I think that's how we continue to do it, is because we're doing some of that heavy lifting, then that you don't want to take on yourself as being in that band. You're trying to write songs, you're trying to play shows. Like, you want to focus on that, not making CDs,
Yeah, and I can't tell you how many, Sam, I can't tell you how many times I put shows together and lost my ass on them just to get these bands heard, just to get shows for Gatlin, just to get shows for, letters and bands that were coming out of town, that were coming through, so I could get one of the bands on the bill. Like, we were just, I was taking on, and Mike as well, to some extent, we were putting out releases, putting on shows. Every release was different to where we had to come from. Like, how do we have to help this band? Like, where can we help this band? Is it the album cover? Is it the back cover? Is it helping them find shows? Is it getting them lined up with the producer? It seems like every release is different. Some bands we put out already had footing. We originally thought we were starting out as a local label.
Right. I was going to say that earlier. When we first talked, we were only going to put out local bands, but then it kind of went beyond that.
What was that?
With people reaching out to you directly, like, "Hey, do you want to put out my record?" It's kind of hard at that point to be like, "No, I just want to put out this band from, Youngstown or whatever."
And I don't think necessarily, I think people were a little wary of us at first. Whether we were legit or some people were just like, "No, we just want to do it on our own." So we were kind of, after we put out, Gatlin and put out the Letters reissue, I don't think people really kind of saw us as a local label, even though we were put out local bands. So I think when like the Prozacs and the Plan Bs came to us, I think it was like, well, you know what? We like these bands. I mean, I've known of Jay Prozac for a long, long time. It was just like, well, I can't wait on the local scene to necessarily be the way that we continue, but let's put out our friends as bands. And, you know, if the local scene comes back, then we'll put out a local band. You know what I mean? It became less of a scene and more of a, less of a scene thing and more of less of a localized thing and more of a global thing, to where we can just put our friends bands and you know what, if local bands want to deal with us, they can, but we're not going to wait around for that. Sam?
Oh, am I supposed to say something?
Yeah, what are your
So
thoughts? What are your thoughts?
I don't know, man. Like, I think it's just like a really cool thing that you know, you guys operate pretty much out of Bandcamp, and then I don't know who you guys use as far as like CD pressing or whatever, but
Just a little small company out of Nevada.
yeah. I know when I was doing CDs for you know, for whatever band that I was in, we were using $1 CD $1 CD duplication, I think was the name of it. It was suggested to me from the Bloody Muffs. Yeah, Brian from the Bloody Muffs.
Oh, okay.
He was like, "Yeah, we use this for all our stuff," and I'm like, "Okay." And they had different packages and shit. So like, there's like ways out there to get your shit. Like, you know, I don't have a computer that can like duplicate like 100 CDs and have a turnaround in like, you know, like a couple days or whatever. But I don't know. Bandcamp's really cool. Like, I think people are used to hearing shit digitally, like on their phone and shit now. You know, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
through a Bluetooth speaker or their car's Bluetooth or whatever the fuck. Um, some people are just listening on their phones. You know what I mean? So like, I think Bandcamp is a good model to use as far as like your main distribution. And then for the old heads like us that still listen to CDs and shit, you know, you guys have your outlet to do that. Um, the only thing that I would say, like, if 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 I was doing what you guys were doing, like, I would try to figure out some cheap ass way to do vinyl. You know what I mean? Like, I had somebody
Yeah,
talk to me
we've
about
yeah,
like
we've
plexi discs and shit, like because they're cheap. You know what I mean?
oh, trust me and Mike have sat on the phone countless times trying to navigate the 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 the, the way things are currently, you know, as far as records and cassettes. And I mean, there was trial and error when we did the cassettes with Dave Strong. It was, well, maybe with this release we tried something different. And you know what? It's a lot of work when you're already putting so many. Like last year, we put out 6 or 7 releases last year.
Yeah.
And at the end of the year, I was talking to Mike. I'm like, I think we might have bitten off more than we could chew. So it's just
like, there's ways to do it cheap, right? But
mm-hmm.
you know, with the current state of vinyl, I can't, in good conscience, sell a record for $30. You know, that's me.
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
People do it every day. Great. But me personally, I used to be a huge vinyl collector. I'm not anymore, but you know, I can't charge someone $30 for a record. I can't. So until that normalizes, which it probably never will, you know, we've been looking at other options for sure. I mean, you have the lathe cut and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's just trying to find, you know, the right release to do it with. We've been talking about it for a while, so it's on my my list for this year. It's just, you know, trying to find the right release to take the plunge with that one.
It would have to be a really big name. You know what I mean? Like, you would have to take a loan out to get the, you know, the pressing done right, you know?
And
Right.
that's
Like,
really,
and then make your money back, you know?
and
you
that's
only make your money back at $30 plus, you know,
Right.
for so it's kind of, well, I guess I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah, I get it.
Here's the thing, Sam. We get it. We had a different duplicator at first, and we switched after think like the 6th or 7th release, we switched our duplicator. And we're basically getting a good enough rate that we can basically give comps away for $5. You know what I mean? And which we could easily charge double of that. We can sell CDs for 10. We can sell EPs for 7. You know what I mean? Because even if you just want the album just to hear the songs, and you know, what's it cost to have a keepsake for $7 to $10? You know what? You know, you may never open or never have it, but you have the songs. But it's not like we're asking you to spend $30 on a label on a record. You know what I mean? It's $10. You know what I mean? Like, we can keep our costs low by doing the CDs. You know, and our overhead is it's we don't have an overhead. You know, we kind of learned how to change the way that we release things, and how not to, and give the bands the best value to, and not kill ourselves in the process. Because trust you and me, Mike can attest, we were hemorrhaging money when we first, because we were putting out, we were getting so much press at once that we just weren't moving them. And it was just like, well, how do we make this more cost efficient? Because it's not like these bands are necessarily touring bands. They're regional bands. They don't go on 3-week tours. And so we couldn't justify having, we don't have that big band to where we could justify selling vinyl for $30 and knowing that we're going to move at least 100 copies of these records. We don't have a band that is that on, maybe to their local scene they can sell that, and if they want to make records, that's good on them. But from our standpoint, on the national level, they're not as known nationally, so we have to look at more of a cost efficient way to do things on a national standpoint. Because I don't know if bands from New England or DC are going, if they don't tour, if they're going to BSL to somebody in California or Texas. So we have to look at it as more of a thing where, like, we have to keep our costs down, because we just don't know if we're going to be able to move the units on a national level.
Right. No, I get that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, that's when you're running into like, you know, record label bullshit, which I think with, you know, the level you guys are at, and your, you know, your philosophical standpoint, I don't think that's something that, like, you know, I think it's a good thing that that's not anything that you guys are thinking about. You know what I mean? Where you got to find that big band that's going to like sell a bunch of records and shit, you know?
Yeah,
Mike,
there's
what do you
labels
think?
that can do that shit. There's labels there's other labels out there that if they want to be, if they have the platform to be able to do that, like, I'm never going to piss on a label because they're at the state where they can sell 500 copies of a record. I'm never going to poo-poo on somebody that can do that. There's labels for that. If that's what you're looking for, then those labels exist. If you want to work with,
there's also labels there. There's also labels that are going to poo-poo on all the bands that can't do that. And I think that's where you guys shine, is that you guys care about what it sounds like. You don't care about if it's going to sell or if it's not going to sell, you know?
Yeah. Well, as long as, Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, 100%. Like, my whole motivation is I just want people to hear these bands. Like, it's really, really simple. I'm not trying to make any money on anything. I just want these bands to be heard. Like I mentioned earlier, there's so much talent that, you know, nobody ever hears half of it. It's not as easy to find bands, you know, like when we were younger, it was still pretty damn hard. You had to go to the record store. You had to dig through, you know, bins. You had to, you know, if you found something you like, you looked at the liner notes and, you know, picked out all the band names in the liner notes. You went and bought those. And I mean, I think it's even more difficult now with streaming to find anything new. So like, you know, with the label, we've put out, I think every record we've put out has been fantastic. I mean, like HELLAPHANT, Dave Strong, those first two that come to mind. Even if we didn't put those out, I'd still listen to those. Those are two awesome records that, you know, people might not have heard otherwise. sure you could do it yourself, but if you have someone to help take the burden off of you and put some of the effort in, it's way easier to have multiple people working on it than doing it alone.
If you guys ever have to, sorry, go ahead.
Plus we had, bands that were, formed during the pandemic too. Bands like Broken Barcodes and the Plan Bs, and even bands like TV Thief, or even so a band like the Prozacs and the Distractions, who have been out for a long time, but they're more of a regional band. Well, the Prozacs are a national band. They're kind of known pretty well between the U.S. and Canada and Europe. But like we give different flavors, and there's bands that that are starting out just the way we're starting out, or maybe have been releasing stuff themselves for such a long time that they're finally at the point where they want some help. And if the record's good, I'm not going to snub my nose because it's not a regional band. You know what I mean? If I like the music, and they're good people and good music, and they want to work with me. Like, who am I to say, I'm not going to work with you because you're not from this area? I'd be stupid to, like you said, HELLAPHANT and Dave Strong. We would have been stupid to say no to those releases. we would have been stupid to say no to the Prozacs, even though we were just putting out like old demos. We would have been stupid to say no to him because he's not from the area. As long as the music's good and these bands and these individuals trust us enough to want to put music out with us, I don't care if somebody says if anybody has an opinion on it. It's what we want to put out. We stand by every release we put out. I don't think there's a bad release we put out, and after 17 releases, I feel like we're just kind of getting into our stride, to be completely honest.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if you guys ever forced to change your name because somebody else is using it and they got legal trademark or whatever the fuck, you should just be Less Burden Records. Because I feel like that's been said like quite a few times throughout this. It's like, or like Lighten the Burden Records or something. I don't know.
I don't think we have to worry about that, Sam.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
I tell you what, I did a very exhaustive search for the name. This is just a record label, and I couldn't find anything. Yeah. I went to like Discogs, and I went through like the old like punk messaging boards that I could find to see if there's any mention of the name, because I didn't want to get into a situation where we put out a couple records and somebody would have been like, oh no, you can't use this name. So yeah. I did a very in-depth search under that name.
It's like when the band The Vermins, which is like the singer of the fucking the singer of the Trades, and he's like, we're the Vermins, and then like everybody jumped all over them because there was a band from Cleveland called The Vermin during the 90s.
Oh yes, trust me, there's comps out there with the name The Vermins, and there's a comp out there with the name The Varmints that we've put out
like the same band. Song. Like same song?
No, different song actually.
Okay.
Yeah, different song. Yeah. It was, I think it was the digital comp, and then there was another comp. I think it's the Varmints, I think.
Yeah.
I think. Am I right? Am I right, Mike?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of funny you brought them up. But yeah, we never got a release out of those guys, unfortunately.
I just think it's funny. It was like this huge friggin' like people got kicked out of Facebook groups because they were like defending these guys' right to use the name The Vermins.
Oh yeah, I made some enemies in Cleveland for sure about my vocal stance on that, and I had to put a singer of I guess, somewhat quasi respected Cleveland band in their place because I think he's a fucking asshole. And I made it pretty clear out loud what I thought of him. And I don't think I'll be working with his band anytime in the future. So
It's just,
Well,
I don't even know who that is, but
oops. Oh, it's not who you think it is. It's some nobody.
I don't even know who that is.
at this point, what hasn't been done? You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's hard to get fucking worked up over something so stupid and trivial, but you know.
Yeah.
But it just reminds me of when like Dan Vapid made his solo band, the Dan Vapid and the Cheats.
Right.
And the Cheats, like, who are, you know, good friends of mine. Well, Todd, I mean, is a good friend of mine, and mostly continuously changing lineup. You know what I mean? But
Right.
like the guys that have been in the band for a while are also friends, you know. But you know, there was that whole thing where like Dan Vapid and the Cheats and like, you know, started putting out stuff, and this was back when people were using MySpace, you know, and there's like a big thing where like they're you know, they have like a little indie record label that they're like the only mainstay band really, and the head of the label was like making a big deal about it, you know, but like the whole thing is, yeah, you can search, which John, you know, you did.
I did my due diligence.
Yeah, with like the record label name, you know, and it's like you can do that. Like it's easy to do that. But if like even with law, you know, trademarks are like they only last for like there's like a certain like amount of miles in a radius or whatever where you like you can still use that name.
Oh
You know
yeah,
what
for
I
sure.
mean? That's the difference between trade because you can't copyright a fucking name. Like you can trademark it, but it only lasts for like a certain like mile radius or something.
You know, I think arguments on names and arguments on what isn't punk rock or what isn't this or that or what's selling out or what's not. I mean, I think Mike can agree on here. If anybody wants to buy the fucking label, they're more than welcome to, because I'll be happy taking a fat stack of cash.
I'm gonna sell the label and start a country band.
Let's do it, man. I'll play washboard, man.
You guys should recruit Beyonce.
We should.
That's a great plan.
Yeah, it's not going to happen, but I mean, you could say Dave Strong is the Beyonce of This Is Just a Record Label.
Dave Strong is the Beyonce of my eye.
Yes, a rockabilly Beyonce.
Dave Strong is the Beyonce of pop punk rockabilly.
Yes, he is. And let's call it a night. I know it's getting super late. I know Mike's got an adult job in the morning, and so does Sammy.
Yeah.
So quick, Mike, let everybody know where they can reach out to you if they want to chat with you. As in as far as the label and all that.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm on all socials. Well, not all socials. Facebook, Instagram. Pretty easy to find. Mike Rodemoyer. Facebook, Instagram. You reach out to me through the label page. I'll respond on there as well.
Yeah. If you don't hear from me, you hear from him, kind of a thing.
Yeah. Whoever gets to it first type deal.
If you want your records to sound so, your CDs to sound so sweet, Mike is the guy to go to.
You should have just said so.
He's just so.
If you want it to sound so.
I can do that too. I'm not a professional anything, so we already went through that.
Yeah, if anybody wants to check out This Is Just a Record Label, the label that's owned by Mike and me, you can do so at thisisjustarecordlabel.bandcamp.com. We're on the socials as well. A lot of the stuff is under the This Is Just a Phase umbrella, especially on Instagram and Twitter. Even though I don't really fucks with Twitter too often, or not the Twitter, the TikTok. I don't fuck with the TikToks too much, or the Twitter at all. You can find us on there for new releases. Our most recent release that was the 80s, 20 punk rock bands covering songs from the 80s. It's selling pretty well, and I think people, have really got a kick out of that project. And we got some stuff coming on the horizon for 2025, a few releases in the pipeline.
Yeah, I mean, that 80s comp came out even better than I ever imagined when we first started talking about it. So I urge anyone that is interested to check that one out for sure.
Yeah, get it before it's taken down. How many tracks are on that? How many
20 tracks?
20 tracks, 20 lawsuits.
I was going to say 20 lawsuits.
That'll be the follow-up comp. That was the
It
20
should be.
lawsuits.
It should be. You guys should make 20 tracks, 20 lawsuits. Your next comp. That's how Green Jello got their notoriety.
That is correct.
Like they're not even allowed to spell it Jello anymore. They have to put an umlaut over a Y and say that, oh, that's how it's pronounced Jello still.
We should do that with the record label name. Put an umlaut.
Put umlaut and a little swoosh over top, the little swoosh.
After the lawsuit.
Yes, after the lawsuit.
Make sure you contact the Associated Press and be like, we're fucking victims of the record industry.
Formerly known as This Is Just a Record Label.
Yes, exactly.
We get sued for our record label. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to say after that cherry thing, Mike, thanks so much for coming on the podcast and chatting with me and Sam. We wanted to have, like I said, we wanted to have you on, not only to bullshit with you, but to just give the listener, a feel of, a genuine friendship between three guys, and chit chat that have a long history together. So, Mike, thanks so much for coming on, man. Enjoy the rest of your night, brother.
Hey, you too. Sam, I'm gonna have to come up to Cleveland, man. I haven't seen you in a long time.
You should, man. There's a lot to do up here.
Yeah, maybe this summer I'll come up with John.
There's like a ridiculous amount of shit to do up here. I don't know why more people don't visit me, but here we are.
No, I've been in Cleveland for years, so I'm about to.
Let's do a weekend in the summer, man. That'll be a good time.
Yeah, for sure.
You guys are more than welcome.
Well, Mike, thanks again for coming on the podcast. Sam, you have a great evening. Mike, you have a great evening, and I'll catch you guys later, man.
All right.
Later, guys.
Peace, guys.
Bye, guys. Thanks.
Thanks. You too.